Right, afternoon. I stand between you and lunch, so I can be really quick if you want.
Take your time.
Don't say that. We'll be here till 7. The pub's open already, so I'm Ed Tucker. I've been an accountant, I've worked on a help desk, I've been head of cyber in government, I've been a vendor, I've been a founder of a startup and back to a CISO and everywhere in between. So I've been a defender, a vendor and a defender again. I don't tend to kind of toe the party line when it comes to cybersecurity, frankly because most of it's rubbish. And hopefully we'll just talk around a few things that hopefully resonate, might not, from my personal experiences through life, and I've managed, hopefully, to get the Beatles theme throughout. To start off, kind of, almost everything that you see in the industry today, expert analysis, articles, webinars, conference speakers, apart from me, obviously. It's all actually kind of driven by people who are trying to sell you something. How many times do you see expert insight from the people who do the day job? When I talk about the day job, that's my day job as a CISO, as a head of cyber, as an analyst, as a defender, who actually do it. How much of the insight is actually paid to play? You know, you're top right of the Gartner Magic Quadrant. I've been a startup founder. We could have entered Gartner. We couldn't afford it. Which kind of is a bit weird, because if you've got a good solution, shouldn't they just look at it in every way? And that's not just Gartner, that could be Forrester, that could be whichever analyst forum wants to have a look at certain products. There's a certain amount of skin you have to put in the game just to be considered. It's really hard to do it without joining the club. How many webinars are front-ended with a presentation from a vendor that just kind of runs through exactly what they offer you, rather than what's possible on this subject matter? How many articles do you read where the expert insight throughout those articles is from people, again, who are trying to sell you something? It's not from the people who actually do it. There's a major vulnerability. Let's get some insight from X vendor, X vendor, X vendor, and X consultant, and X Twitter expert. Rather than someone that actually knows the practicality of how do we address a vulnerability, how do we put business context to someone that's got a huge backlog to go through, that's got features to deliver, features that are going to generate revenue. Or we could stop them generating revenue and say you need to patch this because there's a vulnerability and it's been exploited in the wild, or some other nonsense term that means nothing to someone in business. Oh, there's a POC there, it's been exploited. What do we do? What's the business context? What's the real rationale? How do I prioritise? How do I help people understand it so we can make active risk decisions? How many people actually talk about risk and the different parameters that make up risk? How many times do you have people telling you what you need? You need an insider threat program. You need a next generation firewall. You need to consider the IoT, or computers as they're otherwise known. You need education and awareness. No, you don't need education and awareness. It doesn't work. You need to fish your employees. You don't need to fish your employees. You need. How do they know what you need? How does anyone know what any one of you people need? I don't. I could guess some thematic things because they're ubiquitous across the industry and areas of concern. But I don't know what you need because I don't know your business, I don't know your people, I don't know what you do, I don't know your appetite. Does anyone have a risk appetite? Is it literally a finger in the air saying medium or 7? Is it a genuine risk appetite? Because do we actually understand our risk and all the different parameters that change constantly? Not because the threat is exponential. No, because shit changes. Technology changes. People change. Circumstances change. Pressure changes. Stress changes. And yes, there are more exploits and there are more cyber criminals, the vast majority of which are opportunist shit that's just spaffed across the internet, not high-end adversaries. But if I just tell you, you need to be wary of shit that's just spaffed off the internet, you won't buy something off me. You won't buy my consultancy. You won't buy when I did startups. You won't buy my products. Because I'm actually talking to you about the majority of stuff, the 80-20 rule. In fact, it's probably about the 98-2 rule. Beware experts. They are not always what they seem. There are many, many, many experts in cybersecurity. Many. There are many of them with blue ticks. That means fuck all. Absolutely. That's because I've not got one. No, seriously, it means nothing. It means nothing. How many people in this room have heard of a guy called Giri Sivanesan? 1, 2. So Giri Sivanesan is ex-GCHQ, ex-intelligence services, ex-head of cyber for Lockheed Martin, when they went through the genuine APT awakening, when they came up with things like the kill chain that everyone now spaffs around, when they actually coined kind of things like APT, which everyone gets fundamentally wrong. He then went on to be the director of cyber for EA Games. Everyone ever heard of them? Yeah? They lost the source code to FIFA recently, didn't they? I'll tell you now, Giri is one of the best cyber people on the planet by a distance, and so's his team. And they lost the source code for FIFA. That doesn't mean they're rubbish at security. That means basically it can happen to anyone. But Giri Sivanesan isn't a blue tick on Twitter. He's not someone you see at every conference. He's not someone you see in articles. He's someone that I go to constantly to have conversations with. Because he really, really, really knows his stuff. He's lived and breathed it. He's got it wrong, probably more than he's got it right. And he'll happily put his hand up and say, yeah, of course I have. We'll do. We'll get it wrong. I won't generally go to the people who are in the articles because it's the same people over and over and over and over and over and over and over again who seem to have a comment on every single subject, which means they're either a genius or they're full of shit, or somewhere in between. Somewhere in between, maybe. But there's a lot of it about, mixed with them telling you that you need stuff. Don't get me wrong, some of them are very clever and very well skilled, but they are also playing a game. They're playing a game to pull you in to spend money. You are always going to have to invest in security. It doesn't always have to be financial or directly financial. The trouble is, most of what we see is a helicopter view. A helicopter view, 30,000 foot, this is it. You need a champions network. Great. I know what that is, that's a good thing. We had them in HMRC after the disk loss in 2007, so we had a champions network in 2008. HMRC, that's government. Jesus Christ, were we 13 years ahead of the rest of you? No, it's something that's existed for ages. The difference is, how do you implement it? Why do you implement it? What's its purpose? We implemented it and it ground the business to an absolute halt. Because we didn't know what we were doing. No one did at the time. We figured it out and got better, and it still didn't work perfectly. You know, there were kind of missionaries out in the business who dealt with business data and dealt with business decisions in a hub and spoke model that came back to centre around security decisions, questions, queries. And were kind of a face-off into the business. And it was a full part of their job. It was written into their contracts. It was written into their objectives. It's part of what they do on a daily basis. There is a very different thing between saying you need a champions network and actually implementing one. And actually understanding what are the outcomes I want to achieve when I do that. How do I measure the outcomes? And I don't mean KPIs and crap like that. Or we blocked 1 million things at the email gateway. We blocked 1,000,002 next week, and was that good, bad, or indifferent? Or do I have no control over the internet whatsoever? Meaningful stats. Or am I trying to prove that I spent £1 million and nothing happens? I'm trying to prove a negative. Genuine, measurable outcomes. But what are the bits that make it there? The revolution is understanding what I need to do to make a success. And a success can be literally one step forward. One step forward is still a step forward. Better is still better. Perfect is unachievable. But to take that one step forward, to get better, I need to understand the components that get me there. One of the best analogies I like to talk about is phishing simulations, education and awareness. Just because it's a really simple one to drive this home. We all generally agree that some awareness activities are a good thing to do. Yeah, we're generally rubbish at them, but they are a good thing to do. We sometimes spend half an hour a year on them, which if that worked, my children would go to school maybe for a week a year, and that's it. That doesn't work, but never mind. No one wants to do it anyway, and it's my job to protect them, so who cares? But let's pretend for a minute that we make our people more aware. They're now aware of how to spot phishing emails. Super. What do? If they delete it, then the risk purely happens in their inbox, and I am blissfully unaware of it. So that's not good. We want them to report it, don't we? Yeah, we all get our users to report it. Brilliant. So now they report it. Let's pretend as well they know how to report it and to who, and how to forward an email as an attachment to keep the headers intact and things like that, you know, that your nan could do, because they are just normal people with different skill levels. So let's pretend they can do that. Brilliant. How quickly do your team pick it up? What do they do with it? How do they investigate it? Do they have access to things like Exchange, or do they have to go to the Exchange team? If they want to check if someone's clinked it, do they go to their next generation firewalls or their SIEM tool, or do they have to work with networks? If they want to put a block in place, can they do it themselves, or do they have to go and work with another team? What are the dependencies to make that happen? What's the dwell time? How do they contact other users? Really simple thing of I've spotted a phishing email becomes actually quite a complex beast to do any kind of measurable risk remediation of it. That involves teams outside of your locus of control. How many of you consider that if you do education and awareness? Because you probably should. But someone will tell you you need an education and awareness program. Will they tell you you need to factor in all these other aspects? Will they tell you you need to work on your operational procedures? Will they tell you you need to work on your APIs between teams? Of how you raise a ticket with the Exchange team. Bearing in mind, they've already got a full staff job load for that day. How do you get into that list? How do you become a priority? How do you work with them? Most of which is relationships. But how do you do it? That's the difficult bit. You need an awareness program, and you need our thing with widgets. And why do almost every security company in the world make products with the worst interfaces possible? I mean, genuinely, it looks like we write software from the 80s when it comes to actually usability. You know, my 2-year-old can navigate an iPad. I need a PhD just to understand the dashboard. Because even the language in it is fucking terrible. We can work it out. Generally speaking, that's if we kind of ignore the noise. Because most of it is unhelpful. Because it doesn't tell you all the different building blocks you need to put in place to make a marked improvement. They don't tell you that you need to empathise with your business people. They don't tell you that they don't care. They do care, but they've got a day job. And generally speaking, they've got a really full day job. And I know that we're working remotely, and no, that doesn't make the risk more exponentially worse because all of a sudden they're at home. People have worked from home for years. Oh, but now the perimeter's no longer the perimeter. Yeah, it hasn't been for years. If anyone remembers the Jericho Forum, if anyone's kind of old, there's a few older people in this room, or you might be really young and just had a hard life. Zero trust isn't a new thing. It's just rebadged other stuff. Deperimeterization and all that good stuff. They're good concepts. They're hard. They're really hard to do. But a lot of the things that you get told out there simply don't work. You need to understand all of your assets. I think that's brilliant. I also think it's fucking impossible. You can't. You won't. You can only discover the assets that you can actually discover. We can discover all your data, apart from the stuff that's in the safe over there, because that's not connected to a network. Oh yeah, we can classify all your data. Awesome. What words are we going to use? Confidential. Well, that's a word that's used actually normally. Does it mean anything? Corporate. Oh, well, that's used all the fucking time. What are we going to do with that? DLP is really hard. They're all things that are actually hard and complex. And I know people call it the basics. The basics are hard. They are. No? We're getting to stages where people kind of say, don't pay ransoms. Let's make paying ransoms illegal. Like, cool. All right, let's blame the victim. Because you are a victim of crime. If we don't talk about, well, hang on a minute, we've invested billions of pounds in offensive cybersecurity capabilities, why aren't we using those against the very people who are screwing over all of our businesses? Oh yeah, but that's really complex. What about kind of international law enforcement, cooperation? Oh, that's really complex. Yes, so is protecting myself from ransomware as well. All right, if I expose RDP, I'm a bit of a dick, but sometimes it's hard because people can make change. Guess what? People in your organisation can make change, and they do it every day. And sometimes they go for the easy answer, not necessarily the simple answer, but the easy answer, because it's easy. And it's hard to stay on top of that. And it's not always our job. But it is complex. And the way we actually start to overcome some of this is to it's the 45th anniversary edition of this, because again, none of this is new. We come together and we talk. But I don't tell you that I've just done an awareness campaign, and it's fucking awesome, and it's absolutely brilliant, and everyone engaged with it, and it's absolutely super, and I did this, and I did some videos, and it's brilliant, because that's not the truth. I tell you, what we did, what pitfalls we hit, how many people really engaged with it, the problem we have with getting people engaged, how we try all the different mechanisms and everything that might get people more engaged, what kind of worked in some of our areas and didn't work in others, and you tell me what works in yours, and between us maybe, do you know what, I might try that. I might try that and see if it works. It might not work in my environment, because my environment's unique. Your environment's unique, yours is unique, and all of yours are unique. Every single business is unique. That might sound like bollocks, but there's an exhaustive list as to why your business is unique. You have different employees. End of list. But maybe if we start talking to each other properly, and it's kind of scary because I've got to admit then my failings, I've got to admit I've got things wrong. Guess what? I've got things wrong all the time. I've probably got about 7 or 8 things wrong this week. It's all right. We do, that's how we learn. Hopefully we don't make the same mistakes 7 or 8 times next week. The same ones. Might do. I've got a bad memory, especially when I've been drinking. But if I admit my failings, and maybe you go, well, yeah, I've had the same thing, right, so what do we think? How do we come past it? And actually, we don't just talk as a security community, because then we stayed in this little myopic sphere, in our own little echo chamber. We don't talk to those weird people over there in networks, finance, and stuff. We have to have proper conversations, and grown-up and adult conversations. And that's how we change it. Not some tagline in a news article, or some webinar that's trying to sell you this thing over here. We talk to real people. Some of them are vendors. Some of them are consultants. Some of them are managed service providers, because there are good people in all of them, and you'll find good people to have proper conversations. Giri Sivanesan, to me, is one of those people. We have conversations all the time. And even though he is genuinely someone I really, really, really look up to, he's in my top 3 people in my environment of kind of IT, business and security that I really look up to. Absolutely hold him on a pantheon. And he asks me questions as well. Because otherwise he lives in this little myopic sphere on his own. So we have to come together and do it differently. Not just talk about coming together. Things like this where we can actually share things, but things when we go out there and share, or when we're in the pub, or DM over Twitter or something. Where we can actually have proper conversations and learn from each other. And genuinely listen. You held the 2 up the wrong way, mate. Yeah, I know. You usually show me the other way around. That's it. Better. Thank you. I'm going to end it there. You've literally got kind of a minute or so if you want to ask any questions. But I might throw them back at you. And say, does anyone else know the answer? Go for it.
Talk about sharing ideas.
Yep.
Concepts. Do you think we as individuals need to be more safe to do that? I think there's a lot of dismissive behaviour in certain others.
Yep. 1000%, and a hashtag doesn't sort it. A hashtag does not sort it. You know, whichever ones you want to call about, whatever things that makes it a safe environment. We make it a safe environment by me allowing you to have that idea. Some people won't do it. Right, someone will say, that'll never work because of blah, 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 blah. Fuck off. I allow you to have that idea and we bounce it. We bounce it, we talk. It's hard to do it in a big forum because there's always dissenting voices and it gets drifting off and taken away and it becomes all these things. You can collaborate, but collaborate small and then grow. And mostly ignore the dissenting voices. You know? There's a lot of people talk about things like imposter syndrome, which kind of fits into that as well. I don't want to share my idea because most of the people out there are shit at it. The biggest skills gap we have in the cybersecurity industry, and I will stake my life on this, is the people doing the job today. I'm sorry, but it is. There are a lot of very, very, very good people. There are a lot of people who are not as good. Find the people who are good, find the people that are trust, find the people where you can have that conversation. The bounce ideas, you know, the good people will pat you on the head, put their arm around you and talk about the idea, talk about what environments, how it might work, challenge you to do due diligence on your own ideas, you know. And that's how we grow, that's how we get better. And we have to almost individually make that safe. I don't think we can ever collectively make that safe. There's too many vested interests out there. Go on.
Do you think that the way we've developed security teams, siloed, delivery teams, developer teams, and security teams, is actually broken down as part of the conversation, and then actually would be better off embedding security into those teams and not being security as a
What do you think? Do you think siloing off teams helps?
Ultimately, it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of reasons for those boundaries between different teams come up from management requirements, dependencies, or you can't have this team and that team work for two separate businesses talking to each other, or we bought this product from over there, so we can't, unless you're planning to pay vendors to come in every month to talk to you about the thing they're doing. That's where those hard lines come from. Challenge really comes from having a management team that are prepared to facilitate cross-silo conversations and then work it out from there and empower businesses, the dreadful word is used often, empower people to actually forget about those silos, pick up the phone and speak to Bob in that team over there. But to get to the point where you can speak to Bob in that team over there, you need to know that Bob exists.
But the point I'm making is, should Bob be in that team over there? Should he be in the team? That's not the question. I was the infrastructure delivery manager until 2 years ago, and all of this stuff was my responsibility, and then they built a security team, and I moved into the security team, and now they don't have anything to do with it because it's security. And we made it better or worse.
We create artificial boundaries that don't, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. The only one bit I'll disagree with on, I don't think it requires management. Ideally it does. You can just do it. You can just talk to people. The one mantra I would always say, and it's an old one, it's always easier to ask forgiveness than permission. It's a lot fucking quicker. Some of the best relationships I had at HMRC was with some of the architects in Capgemini. Because we recognised we could make each other's lives easier just by talking. And we knew there was a point where we had to have commercial discussions, and that's when we kind of stepped away. But before then, if we talked, wow, that made their changes a lot easier to go through because there was less assurance and fucking armad to go through. And I got what I want, and I knew, and I built trust relationships. And that was across boundaries that we shouldn't have done. Or I was in a luxurious position of being a certain level of seniority, but my team members did it as well. Empowerment is a word that's often not misused, but misimplemented. Autonomy is the same as well. But you as an individual, go, talk to people. If you kind of we never get anything from this team here, go talk to them. Go and understand what they do for a day job, how much workload they've got. Probably a fuck ton of it. And that's why it's really hard to get anything from them. Start to build a relationship with them. You're not always going to get success, but you're going to get better than just kind of going, I wish someone would do something about this. Well, fucking do something about it. Go and talk to them. Build up a relationship, even in your own business.
I've got a question for the audience. How many of you work in a cybersecurity department? How many of your cybersecurity departments have a comms and engagement strategy? Wow, there's a lot. If you don't know how to talk, or if you don't know how you talk, what language, then they have problems.
How many of you, just to go off that, how many of you have got kind of a strategy? In any of your business areas, not just cyber, how many of you have got a strategy for your team? Might not be that you own it, but have got a strategy. Yeah? How many of you have published your strategy for everyone in the business to see? Why not? It's really simple. Someone might not read it, but just put it out there. Then anyone who happens to be really, really bored and looks and is, scrambling, they might be on the intranet trying to find something really useful, like how do I book holiday? And, 6 days later, when they still haven't found it, they might stumble onto your page. Like, what's this? Tell them what you're doing. Tell them why you're doing it. Tell them your story. It'll engage with some people. Put your profiles on there. Tell them about yourselves. Make it human. Make it reachable. Make it transparent. Why am I doing this thing which might be an impediment to them living their life in the workplace? I'm hopefully not going to be an impediment. That's the other side of transparency I want to reach. But I want to tell them. I don't want to just do it to them. I want to make them part of the journey. They might not be invested. They might not go, oh, wow, they've just published a new cybersecurity strategy. Wow, God, the page won't load. There's so many people trying to get on the bugger. No. Generally speaking, things like security policies, the only poor bastard that reads them is the poor bastard that wrote them. They're not riveting because, God, we're shit at policies. Thou shalt not without any risk content. But just publish stuff, get it out there. Not everyone's going to read it. Don't say, oh, we're going to do a blog every week, because that's really hard, because you've always got to have content. But things like strategy and stuff like that, publish it, let people read it, let them understand, let them critique it, let them ask questions.
You've got to simplify it down. My company's got all sorts of security trends, blah, blah, blah. This guy and me and another guy, just put all our data together. What are doing encryption for all this? Do these things.
Yep.
Simple. If you don't have to do it, come to tools.
Yep.
You know, there is nothing standard to go through your page. One page to go. And we've got people start tools.
I almost dived on that to save your life then. There was a grenade landed on there, and then for a moment I was like, fuck it. So we had a great conversation last night. Yeah? We talked about cross-site scripting, and the difference between, everyone's heard of cross-site scripting? Everyone can talk about cross-site scripting. How many people actually understand what it means in practice? And it was going on about almost the epiphany moment of really understanding it, and then going, now I can apply that business context. Now I can simplify it to someone else rather than just go, cross-site scripting is a bad thing and you need to do blah, blah, blah. Yeah, why? What's going to happen? Oh, yeah, well, something bad might happen. Yeah, but what's the business impact? What's it mean to me? I've got 7 features to deliver. What's it matter? But cross-site scripting's bad. It's like high and what's it actually mean to me? Because I've got all this shit to do. Oh, yeah, and not being able to actually really tell people in the simple form, what does it mean? And guess what? They're not always going to do what you want. Guess what? You're going to concede risk all the time. You are. All the time. You accept risk now. It's like one of the best things is when you uncover a risk, everyone goes, no, we've got to do something. It was always there. You've by default accepted it for God knows how many years. All you've done is uncover it. That's actually a good thing. That's a step forward, because now you know, or now you know some of it. Now you can dig a bit deeper before you set your hair on fire and go, no, it's a good thing. Now you're a step further forward than you were yesterday, because that was there yesterday, you were just blissfully unaware. Now we need to delve into it. Now we need to simplify it. Now we need to understand the business context, the effort involved to do something about it, and then make decisions, or help other people make decisions, and they're not always going to be the decisions we want them to make.
This is not my sector, but I'll find interesting to build other sectors. So I was wondering, is there a sector or industry which do what you're saying in a way that we should do?
The one that I would probably most like us to get into bed with is health and safety. Health and safety, or near misses. Why do they report near misses? Because it can stop someone dying. How many of us report near misses? That's a giant show of hands here. Everyone's really tired, aren't they? I can't even get it. Yeah? There's one we should be doing.
You could argue that dispersing phishing campaigns is a minute. You effectively reporting your phishing engagements or whatever.
Yep. There you go. It is. I've spotted this. It is a near miss, absolutely. We need to just think of it that way. That's probably the industry that of all of the ones that are out there, I think health and safety is one we should really think about in how we approach some of this.
I do agree. I did my annual compliance stuff and safety training.
Yeah, not that stuff.
And actually, I have to say that they did it quite well, and it was really easy to sit. I mean, I work with risk. I have to talk about risk every day, and it's really easy to do that and see the crossover between the two. But they presented risk to a much wider audience than I do, in ways that non-health and safety people can understand.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
a pretty good shout.
It is a little bit of an easier subject matter. It's a little bit like there's a risk when you cross the road. Yeah? It's quite tangible when you see a big metal thing coming at you. That's quite a tangible kind of threat, isn't it? You're kind of like, yeah. But guess what? People get killed on roads every single day. And we all know that thing's heavy and that thing's going to really do some damage. But, I've accepted the risk. If I decide to run out between parked cars, I'm accepting the risk by default.
I agree with you on that. I think this health and safety paradigm is really good. The change in health and safety over the last 20, 30 years, some of it might have been driven by legislation. That's a big thing changing. So
Yep.
do you think that would help the cycle?
Potentially. So it's a bit of a wishy-washy answer, mainly because we're crap at legislation and we're even worse at implementation. And generally speaking, people see it and go, cha-ching! Make it rain. What's that? The GDPR? Make it rain. Hang on, let's get a countdown clock on this motherfucker. Sorry. You know, because then it's an opportunity for someone to make... I think it is, so long as we talk about it practically, at a practical level. Just, again, simple steps forward, thinking about things like near misses, thinking about things like publishing your strategy, talking to other teams. One step forward. Think about where do I want to get to, and what are the different blocks to get me there, and how many of them do I control? So therefore, how many of them do I need to influence through relationships and APIs between teams? I think we're quite over.
By a long time. If you ever going to make the timeline,
At least you put one forward.
this is true. Massive round of applause.